Let's get going. As I say, do make sure that you have a look at the previous video for the annotations. We were looking at the opening of the play itself, the very famous opening scene involving the witches. So let's think carefully then. We're in the exam, we've annotated the extract, we've got all of that, we're now ready to start writing. So the first thing we need to do, as I'm sure my class are very fond of saying, is situate the extract. So let's do that. Let's do exactly what the exam board want us to do for AO1. They want an overview and they want us to understand where this is taken from. So this extract is taken from the opening, the famous opening of the play, in which we meet the three witches, and Shakespeare establishes plays key themes involving the power of the supernatural and their ability to manipulate and undermine the mortal world. Okay. So we've situated it, we've linked it to some of the broader ideas of the play. Where are we going to go next? We need to be a little bit more focused now. We need to talk about, well, why is this extract so important? These lines introduce the audience, let's keep it focused on the audience, introduce the audience to a world which is full of threatening ambiguity. Okay, really important to proofread your work. Okay, so we think about ambiguity, threatening ambiguity and equivocation. As I said last time, equivocation, it's got to be an any answer. It's as I described it last time, it's the beating heart of the play. So let's have a little bit of a think about where we are now. So if we just quickly read it back over, and I'm writing this live, so I need to constantly, I feel like when I'm doing this, sometimes I think students believe that you can just deliver an answer fully formed, as if you were, I don't know, laying an egg or something like that. It doesn't work like that, I'm afraid. It's a much more difficult process. So let's have a think through. This extract is taken from the famous opening of the play. So I've situated it, in which we meet the three witches, and Shakespeare establishes the play's key themes involving the power of the supernatural and their ability to manipulate and undermine the mortal world. Okay, that's fine. These lines introduce the audience to a world which is full of threatening ambiguity and equivocation. Okay, I think that's enough. I think that's good. So we've situated the extract, we've spoken about why it's important, and now we need to engage in this AO2 focused language analysis. Okay, the extract opens with a rhyming couplet that immediately produces a sense of incantatory power through the words, through the language of the witches. Okay, and then we're going to introduce the quotation. So what have we got? When shall we three meet again, in thunder, lightning, or in rain? Meet again, a new line, in thunder, lightning, or in rain? Question mark. Right, let's go. So, we've got this focus on the weather here, haven't we? As well as this sense of mentioning the incantatory power of the language with the rhyming couplet. So let's think a little bit more about that. Let's think a little bit more about the supernatural power of the witches and the link to the weather. Okay, it was believed that witches at the time, so a little bit of context, and although context is not specifically assessed here, there's no AO3 component, really that would fall under AO1 material. So we're understanding the play, we're understanding the language of the play, and we're thinking about its big ideas. Okay, it's kind of exploratory analysis really. was believed that witches could manipulate the weather, and this serves to reinforce the strong sense of their supernatural power and control. Okay, we want to add a bit more. Moreover, the weather chosen is threatening and unsettling, further emphasizing the link between these characters. Link between these characters and malevolence. Okay. Personally, I feel this opening is what's it trying to do? This opening is crucial. Okay, so we're going to engage in a little bit of evaluative language. Personally, I feel this opening is crucial in creating or producing, let's say producing a deep sense of danger and dramatic tension. Okay, so what have we done here? Well, we've got some language analysis. We've linked that to the witch's supernatural power. We've mentioned that the actual rhyming couplet, the "When shall we three meet again in thunder, lightning or in rain," that rhyming couplet has a kind of incantatory power to it. And we've developed our point. We've added extra analysis with language like moreover, pushing the point further, and thinking back to yesterday and the mark scheme, there's that emphasis on personal response. And indeed, in order to meet that requirement, that's exactly what we've done here. Personally, I feel this opening is crucial in producing a deep sense of danger and dramatic tension. So that's great. That's the kind of evaluative response that they want. Next. So we're showing, simply with that sentence opener there, we're showing the examiner that we're moving our way through the actual extract. We're choosing specific quotations, but we are demonstrating that range. So let's think now. Next, the second witch adopts the kind of ambiguous and equivocating language that occupies much of the play in the line quotation, "When the hurly-burly's done." Oh, let me just sort that out. Always important to proofread. "When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won." Okay, so where next? Again, we have the repeated use of a rhyming couplet, linking the speech of the two witches and creating a sense in which individual identity is dissolved, revealing to the audience the slippery and what word are we looking for here? Let's think carefully. Revealing to the audience the slippery and unreal nature of the witches. Okay, so it's a sense here in which their language, by sort of repeating the same rhyming couplet pattern, there's a sense in which individual identity is already breaking down, that the witches appear to be individual characters and yet simultaneously kind of engaged in a sort of call and response. It's odd. It's as if the witches don't have their own individual, almost kind of linguistic identity, but that they share a kind of broader linguistic identity, and that's being evoked, we might say, with the use of those rhyming couplets. Okay. The sense of the battle lost and won is our first experience as an audience of paradoxical, seemingly nonsensical language from the witches, something repeated later in the extract in the famous "fair is foul, foul is fair." We'll come back to that shortly. That definitely needs quite a bit more work. The sense in which Macbeth both wins and loses the battle is interesting, for it is that very experience, battle, that produces the sequence of events that leads to the regicidal killing of King Duncan. It's the sort of, he both simultaneously wins the battle by cutting people in half and being a powerful warrior, and yet it's that very success which gives him a taste of Thane of Cawdor and the possibility of further power, and of course seemingly brings him within the purview of the witches, and it all goes downhill seemingly from there. Okay, so we're linking now. If we just quickly have a little look back, where have we gone? So let's have a look what we're doing. So we're thinking about the specifics of the language. We've done what we might call zoomed in analysis. There's lots of different ways that your teachers might discuss this, but we've zoomed in on some keywords here. Tried to explore the idea of some of the techniques that Shakespeare's using, that, for example, paradox or apparently nonsensical language, but of course it is a paradox. It is possible to both win and lose a battle, and Macbeth wins it in the short term and sort of loses it, I suppose, in the longer term. We've, I would say, done that quotation some justice. Again, I am aware of the time. I'm thinking very carefully about the time. Let's think a little bit about the position of the witches. The witches appear in this extract. Let's move on to the kind of Eagleton point that we discussed discussing yesterday. The witches appear in this extract to exist and operate within times and geographical spaces that are apart and on the margins. We've already used appear. Let's think of something different. They organise to meet again. Where do they? At the set of the sun. Time between day and night, but somehow neither. Moreover, okay, so again, in addition, we don't want to write things like also. Lots of students will write also, and you sort of lose that sense of formality. Remember, in AO1 it does mention academic register. We want to be using this sort of language, in addition, moreover, rather than also, which is rather informal and a little bit too chatty. So, moreover, they arrange to meet upon the heath, place outside of towns, villages and cities, isolated and beyond the control of mortal powers, like kings and queens, are kind of existing outside. Okay, this is important in that the witches are ambiguous, slippery, and so this is very important in that the witches are ambiguous, slippery, and elusive. Difficult to pin down. Little bit informal, that I think. So this is very important in that the witches are ambiguous, slippery, and elusive. Existing in our world and yet simultaneously outside of it. It is this odd, supernatural, and uncertain existence that allows the witches to manipulate Macbeth with their riddling and paradoxical language. Okay, quite a bit going on here. So let's think about this. The witches are seemingly part of our world, inhabitants of the earth. They look like they're inhabitants of the earth, and yet they are, of course, seemingly floating, according to Banquo, in a couple of scenes' time. They're upon the heath. They're not in a major city. They're not even in a village. They're outside of these kind of normal spaces. And in fact, that idea of the witches existing outside of normal spaces is, I think, really, really important. They are supernatural beings able to manipulate and kind of move effortlessly and obviously very dangerously through our world. Okay, and it's of course the fact that they have this ambiguous, slippery and elusive nature, both in terms of their appearance, both in terms of their behaviour, both in terms of their manner, both in terms of their language. All of that combines to make the witches, you know, the absolutely fantastic manipulators that they are. Okay. Let's little comment on this line in unison, although let's just mention here where it says the third witch there to meet with Macbeth. Let's go back to the question. Okay, the witches are also revealed to have supernatural foresight in that they predict their meeting with Macbeth seemingly before it actually takes place. Quotation there to meet with Macbeth. Okay. So why does that matter? Such prophetic understanding reminds an audience of their supernatural power, while also allowing Shakespeare to generate enormous dramatic tension as we then anticipate this meeting. Okay. Personally, I feel this introduces, so let's go back to this idea of personal response. Personally, I feel this introduces a sense of dread as we realise Macbeth is potentially a victim of these malevolent and manipulative creatures. Okay, next, let's think. We could, in the interest of time, I think we might have to slightly jettison some of the comments about Graymalkin and Paddock and this idea of familiars. So, interested in the final section. The final lines of the scene are delivered in unison, further emphasising, because that's a point we've already made, further emphasising the sense that the witches are both individual beings and one single entity. Their ability to slip between one and many is further indication of their strange, unsettling ability to resist definition. Okay, let me just sort out the. Let's have a look. Here we go. So that's better. Okay, is to resist definition, and indeed they do resist definition despite Banquo's attempts to define them, and something that Macbeth himself recognises, doesn't it, when he says, "Stay, you imperfect speakers." He recognises that there's something deeply imperfect about these witches, although he's obviously very keen to hear what else they have to say for themselves. Okay, so the final lines of the scene are delivered in unison. So that means, by the way, all together. You can Google any of this language if you need to. Further emphasising the sense that the witches are both individual beings and one single entity. Their ability to slip between one and many is further indication of their strange, unsettling ability to resist definition. These lines continue the use of rhyming couplets, adding to the frightening sense that they can use language to dangerous and evil ends. Furthermore, they utter the paradoxical "fair is foul" and "foul is fair," a line with multiple interpretations. Okay, lots to say about this. Is fantastic, isn't it? Okay, firstly, so the pointing out there's different ways of understanding this language, and actually exploring that is definitely Band 5 territory. So furthermore, they utter the paradoxical "fair is foul" and "foul is fair," a line with multiple interpretations. So we're signalling to the examiner, look, I can do this multiple interpretation thing. Firstly, this paradox is itself an equivocation, reminding us of the ambiguities of language itself, of language, and the ways we can manipulate words to obfuscate as well as clarify. They are, in many ways, the sort of consummate obfuscators. So they can obfuscate with this as well as clarify. However, so what else? However, the line also echoes a key idea within the play, namely the difficulties in discerning the differences between appearances and reality. The notion of deceiving appearances is one that occurs throughout the play, whether within Lady Macbeth's advice to her husband to appear a flower but be a serpent under it, or in so where are we here with just, I mean, this is a difficult one. We don't want to do too much of this. We don't want to do too much quotation outside the extract, because an examiner might go, hang on a second, this isn't the essay, this is the extract. But I do think in this moment, fair is foul and foul is fair is so important that we probably do need to mention the idea of appearance versus reality, which is obviously one reading of that line, and the way that that is explored in the rest of the play. And we try and keep our quotations short, so we're not wasting too much time, but be a serpent under it, or in King Duncan's inability to read the thing of Cawdor's face. Okay, let's have a quick look at this then. So quickly reading back. Firstly, this paradox is itself an equivocation, reminding us of the ambiguities of language and the ways we can manipulate words to obfuscate as well as clarify. So language can be used to muddy the water, we might say. However, the line also echoes a key idea within the play, so this is important. This is linking the sort of micro detail to the macro ideas of the play, the big ideas of the play. Echoes a key idea within the play, namely the difficulties in discerning the differences between appearances and reality. The notion of deceiving appearances is one that occurs throughout the play, whether within Lady Macbeth's advice to her husband, or in King Duncan's inability to read that old deceitful Thane of Cawdor. Okay, regardless of the interpretation, I personally feel this line's power when it is repeated back later by Macbeth himself, linking the witches and their supernatural abilities to the protagonist of the play. Okay, so that's important. Macbeth, when he comes on stage for the first time, and we actually meet him in person on stage as a character, says, so foul and fair a day I have not seen. Okay, so he's using the language of the witches seemingly without realising. Okay, right, let's quickly wrap it up. This extract introduces the play's most fertile and unsettling force through the witches. So this extract introduces the play's most fertile and unsettling force. The witches use their indeterminate physical characteristics and the riddling, paradoxical and ambiguous nature of language to undermine Macbeth and the wider society in which he operated. Okay, so we're rounding it off now. These ideas are drawn almost word for word from Terry Eagleton's writing in a book called William Shakespeare, and it has a chapter that covers at least part of Macbeth, and these ideas are taken effectively from that. It's a great little book, actually. It doesn't have a very long section on Macbeth as a play, but it is worth reading. And I think those students who are really interested in English literature, those students who want to push themselves to grade 7, 8, 9 in particular, and students who maybe even think about moving into studying English literature at A-level and possibly beyond, like myself, might want to start reading that kind of literary critical material. There's no reason why not. So we've got lots of work here. We've done this, it's taken quite some time. Now, the purpose of this exercise, okay, is to think very carefully through the way that we've structured this. And if we just scroll back, okay, and we go back through this to the beginning, you can see that, just to recap what we've done, we've situated the extract here. Why is this extract important, and when is it taken from? Okay, whereabouts in the play does it occur, and why does that matter? And then, really, what we're doing is we're tracking our way through the text. So we're working our way through, we're zooming in where we can, we're linking the language, any techniques that we can comment on, so things like the incantatory power of the language through the use of a rhyming couplet, comments about dramatic tension. We are, where we feel able to, making personal comments. And then we work our way through methodically, carefully picking out key quotations. Not every single line. So, for example, this is quite a short extract that I'm looking at here, but I've not included comments on the witches' familiars because can I make enough of that in the time? Probably not, and I want to spend a bit more time on that. Those final lines, fair is foul and foul is fair. In the interest of time as well, I've not even really been able to comment on the fact that they, as it says, hover through the fog and filthy air. But you know what? We're kind of pushed for time. I think we've done enough. More personal comments. Again, introducing that sense. If we read almost directly from the exam board, it says, perhaps with some originality in their personal response. Well, I think we're trying to do that. More analysis, worked our way through to the very bottom. Not too much of this, but I think a little bit of linking it to other points in the play would definitely demonstrate an evaluative approach. I think it's critical analysis. You understand, you're including direct references, as it says here, from across the text. So I think that's okay. Not too much of that. Keep the focus on the extract, but it's such a pivotal line that I think it's legitimate to look beyond the confines of the extract there. And then finally, very short conclusion, if there's time. Okay, just summing up, why is this an important extract? So the two videos that I've produced so far, and I'm sure you'll be delighted to know there'll be more to come. The two videos so far are really there to help you set up your understanding of the Macbeth extract question. So how do we annotate, first part, and secondly, how do we turn those annotations into a written response? I really hope that you found this a useful and informative video. Thanks for your time, and of course, thanks for watching.